大家好，欢迎回到我的频道. I've been studying Mandarin Chinese now for 3 months with several different resources. Today, I'm going to be giving you my opinion on the Chinese Duolingo. As a teacher of French and German, and now just a beginner of Chinese, I hope I'm able to give you a unique perspective on the pros and cons of Duolingo. Hey everyone, my name is Erin, and here on the Multilingual Mind, my goal is to give you guys the tips and tricks that you need to succeed in learning languages. If you're new here, make sure you click the subscribe button to see more videos on how you can improve your language learning habits and reach your language learning goals. 开始吧! Alright guys, let's start on a positive note with the pros. One of the things I like about Duolingo is the incentives they have to keep you motivated. For example, they have a day streak, they have achievement badges, they show you your XP points that you've earned, and you can also earn your way into different leagues. Another thing that I like about Duolingo that I don't think is necessarily true for all of the languages that they offer is that it is full of useful vocabulary and lots of it. For example, last week I learned the phrase 下班, and then when I was on tandem later that evening, somebody actually used that phrase with me. And this happens to me all the time. Another thing that I like about Duolingo is that it's heavy on repetition. So it's not going to let you guys move on if you don't really know the content. And the way that it does this is that you have to repeat the exercise, and I believe it gets a little bit harder every time, but there are rings around the circle that you have to complete, and once you've completed all 5 of them, then you can go on to the next. They usually allow about 2 to 3 lessons at a time before you can unlock the other levels. So I think this is a really great way for people who maybe aren't accustomed to learning languages to really make sure that they're learning the material in their long-term memory. Another thing that I really like about Duolingo is that there are checkpoints to test your knowledge, which is kind of nice to know where you're at before you move on. And you can also add friends to your profile so that you can compete with each other or just kind of check in and see how they're doing and motivate each other to keep continuing on your Duolingo path. There's also another function of the app that has events listed for you that you can, for example, you can participate in online speaking groups and things like that. And I find that there are quite a few of those. So if you're interested in taking your education a little bit further, you don't have to look much further than the app in order to participate in a group. For me personally, I prefer going to groups on meetup.com. However, I haven't tried the Duolingo ones, but there seem to be a lot of them, and I think that these could really be useful. Okay guys, now we're moving on to the cons. One thing that I found is that they don't have you practice actually writing the characters, and on top of that, you don't have any practice composing sentences on your own. It always gives you a word bank. So this won't really develop your language skills in that way as far as writing goes. I also find that it doesn't have you speaking much more than just repeating after them or reading something off of a sheet. But as far as composing your own sentences with actual speech, that doesn't happen much either in Duolingo. Another thing that I've noticed is that the voices can sometimes sound a bit robotic on Duolingo, and so you might not develop that real native sound. However, I do find that Duolingo is good for learning the tones. If you are a native Chinese speaker and you happen to be watching this video, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Another unfortunate con is that there are no Chinese stories in Duolingo, at least yet. I do study Italian with Duolingo, and I've read several of their stories, and the stories have really helped my Italian out. I will probably say this a million times on my channel, but reading is one of the best ways to learn a language, and so if the reading is at your level, it can do wonders for learning languages through acquisition in a very natural way. Another con is that if a language is particularly difficult for you to learn, the losing hearts portion of the Duolingo app might be really discouraging to you. I know when I first started with Chinese on like the very first couple of lessons, I was really confused and I didn't know really what I was doing, and I was losing so many hearts that it makes you do these like makeup practices in order to get back on track with the regular lesson again. And that can be a little bit discouraging to feel like you're failing so much that you just can't get a leg up. But I think if you guys stick with it, you know, it doesn't, the turnaround time is not very long, guys, when you kind of stop struggling and you're able to just go ahead and not worry about losing hearts anymore. So you'll make a lot of progress really fast. So my general conclusions are that Duolingo has helped me learn a lot of different vocabulary and reinforce that, but in conjunction with a textbook and some other resources that I really love using. So Duolingo has reinforced that vocabulary that I'm learning in the textbook and also teaching me, pre-teaching me new vocabulary that I will see usually in the next lesson, which is really cool. My advice for you guys is to start with Duolingo and do about 2 to 3 lessons at a time. And once you start progressing through the levels a little bit more and you start to feel yourself getting a little bit overwhelmed or not really sure if you remember those lessons from before, just go ahead and go back and review those previous lessons. For me, my rule of thumb is each time I hit a new checkpoint, I go back all the way to the beginning from lesson 1 and I review every single one at one time through. So I'll do one review per lesson, and then I will just review everything up until the checkpoint where I recently got to. Another point of advice, which I mentioned earlier, is do not make this your one-stop shop for Chinese, unless maybe you're just going on a short trip to China and you want to have a couple of phrases under your belt. But if you really want to be able to read, write, speak, and listen very well, then you're going to need some other resources. Also, using other resources can help confirm what you already know or bring your knowledge even further and teach you more colloquial speech. So for example, I learned from other resources that 你好吗 and 再见 are a little bit more formal, and in fact they usually use more informal ways to say goodbye, for example, and they don't really use 你好吗 very much at all. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to see more reviews on the resources that I'm using to learn Chinese. I'll also be putting out a review soon on the app Hello Chinese. If you're currently using Duolingo Chinese, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. That's all I've got for today. Bye bye!